As most people are well aware of, during the ministry of J Frank Norris, he had a continuous running feud with most or a great number of Southern Baptist convention leaders. And on my website, entitled the J Frank Norris Historical Society, blogspot.com, I have tried to present the positive side of a very unusual man. Observing him up close since 1928, I knew of his weaknesses, but contrary to his critics, who have been many of them have characterized him as a man possessed with a dark side. Friends, I've studied the controversies in which he's engaged in, and it's my honest opinion that almost without exception, every person with common sense, if you knew the facts, would acquiesce in the fact that J Frank Norris was usually a man ahead of his times. I have entitled this video, "The Fruits of Denominationalism," and the subtitle I have classified as this: "Some nice things United States Baptists have said about Adolf Hitler." And this event took place 75 years ago. J Frank Norris was in the middle of that controversy. So I say this video is a reflection of those events which happened about 75 years ago, in which is a reminder to us of the ghosts of Nazi Germany. And had it not been for the sacrifice of 500,000 American soldiers who gave their lives to eradicate the greatest menace of the last 2,000 years, the ghost of Adolf Hitler might just now be a living nightmare. As a veteran of World War II, this is a subject that is dear to my heart, and why that I feel so passionate about what I'm about to say. I present this video to emphasize the fact that all human beings are apt to make mistakes in judgment, but sometimes those judgments may not be the real intent of the heart of the person making that statement. And the reason I say that is simply because every statement that we make, our positions in life, more often than not, must be looked at in its context before we can really make a fair judgment. And with that thought in mind, I'm not making judgments, generalizing against anybody, except for the fact that in 1935, it happened in Berlin, Germany, at a conference of the Baptist World Alliance. And here's what I'd like to leave with everyone who views this video. If you will pull up on your computer the name William Lloyd Allen, you will find some alarming proclamations, which in all likelihood you have never heard before. The naivete on the part of Baptist leaders, and I emphasize these were isolated incidences, because most, and I say this lovingly, all of my relatives and folks that I have associated with were Southern Baptist people who are the cream of the crop, and I love them dearly. But like the man J Frank Norris, reserved the right to disagree whenever the occasion called for it. So I say again, the naivete on the part of the Baptist leaders meeting in Berlin, Germany, would not be tolerated among the Baptist circles today. Read this website and verify for yourself whether or not I am telling you the facts as I have gleaned from these websites. And it needs to be known that in order for us to understand the real J. Frank Norris and to justly judge him for what he was, you have to know both sides of the story. And I say again, in his defense, there was never a more staunch defender of the Jewish cause than J. Frank Norris, even breaking fellowship over this very issue with some of the closest fundamentalist brethren in his day. And this indeed, in of itself, would be a compelling story. Early on in the 1920s, there was a document that appeared in Europe which became, you might say, the genesis of Hitler's thinking toward, in his mind, solving what was termed the Jewish problem. There was no Jewish problem, except in the minds of those who were misinformed. And I would mention this fact, which will be an enlightening piece of document that you will pick up on and glean much information from it, entitled The Protocols of the Elders of John. J. Frank Norris picked up on this and realized that it was a fraudulent document, impugning the intent of the Jewish leaders from the time of about 1900 for 20 years. And ironically, it was Henry Ford in America that promoted these so-called fraudulent documents, implying that the Jews were at the heart of the problems of the world. Sadly, the Baptist leaders, as I've already mentioned, many of them had an attitude of naivete, which, if looked at this present day, would not make those statements. But again, to clarify what I have already said, look at the website of William Lloyd Allen. And if you have further information, you can contact me on my website. Thank you again for listening. God bless you. God bless America in this time of trouble. Thank you for listening. Bye.